welcome to the Inviting Shift podcast. I'm so excited that you're here. This is the Midlife Woman's podcast for a confident and joyful journey. I'm your host, Christina Smith, and twice a week I'll be bringing you topics that impact midlife women the most. I hear it from my clients. They have health concerns around perimenopause and menopause. We have mental and emotional challenges going on that I want to help you manage and work through. I want to talk about how we deepen our relationships and our friendships in midlife, and then what we do when we want more, how we get clear on that, and how we start moving forward confidently and joyfully, because that's what this journey is about. I want midlife women to come together, create a community to revolutionize how we see midlife. Tune in for this week's topic. Welcome back, shifters. It is a new week, a new podcast, and we have Trang Nova here today. And Trang is going to help us start unpacking how in midlife we can start giving ourselves permission to do a million things and to show up differently, to change roles, to decide to do it our way, whatever the thing is that you need permission for. That's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we get into that, let me introduce you to Trang Nova. Thanks, Trang, for being here. I really appreciate you.
Hey, Christina. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I am delighted to be here and to be having this conversation that I think so many more of us need to be talking about and hearing.
Yeah. So before we start, just tell us a bit about who you are and who it is that you help.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hello, everyone. My name is Trang Nova, as already introduced. And how I would describe myself is I am a mentor and speaker for women who are hungry to pivot and to build their dream businesses of impact so that ultimately you can fulfill your purpose and potential and create your dream life of freedom and fulfillment. And like there's so many different ways that I can talk about how I've landed here. But for me, I really went on this journey myself as well because I had the straightforward upbringing of, oh, you got to work hard, you've got to go to university, you can have a stable job for life, and then you can enjoy the reward of a good life. So then I went to university, and then after working as a physiotherapist or physical therapist, as it's called over there, for a few years, I went through a quarter life crisis. I was just 24 years old. And that's when I essentially asked myself the question, is this it for the rest of my life? Like, am I, is this all I'm going to do and to contribute to the world and all I'm going to be for the rest of my life? What do I want to do for the rest of my life? And it's funny because I'd asked myself that question so many times already growing up. You know, when you're growing up and you're constantly asked, what do you want to do when you grow up, right? So I'd always thought about it, but this time I could think about this and question this from a different lens. And essentially I realized that the path that I was on now was what I thought I should be doing based on what everyone else around me was suggesting. But it wasn't what was true to my heart in the way that I wanted to contribute and in the way that I wanted to live my life. So then I went through that career change. I started my business, and since then, I can only hope that my impact has grown. But what I can say for sure is I am living my dream life and I'm more fulfilled than I've ever been before. So it was a journey. It was a full journey, and I describe it in like 2 minutes, but it was quite a few years of ups and downs and twists and unexpected turns. So I want to share that like it is possible. And on the other side of the clouds, it is the most liberating and empowering existence that we could lead.
I love that so much because a similar thing happened to me, but I wasn't quite such an early start. Mine probably happened around 35, and I had checked all the boxes, right? My mother had told me, when you go to college, you'll be happy. When you graduate, you'll be happy. When you get that first job, when you have the husband and the house and the children, you'll be happy. And at 35, I had all of those things. And I don't think I was more miserable than that time in my life, because all I kept thinking was, I'm supposed to be happy. This does not feel happy, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
similarly to you, like I thought I was creating my path on the way to, getting that really great job. And basically, I was given, two options: doctor or lawyer. Those are the paths that you should be on because you're smart, and so you should just, do the things that are successful. And although I didn't go to law school, I had really thought about it. And then I was like, why am I not happy? And I realized, because I was living someone else's life. I was living this life of what I should do, not what I actually wanted to do. Because even though they ask you that question, what do you want to be when you grow up? There seems to be very limited correct answers to that in my family. Like opening your own business, that was not it, because that was unsafe. And they were, my mother is first immigrant, first born here, from her family. And so when you have immigrants, you often have this, you just work for someone else and you get your paycheck and you just get really happy that somebody has employed you. And that's it. Like, so when I chose to have my own business, I mean, it took my mom up to 8 years to stop sending me want ads because she was sure that I was messing up my life. So that brings us to one of the first permissions I was thinking about when I was thinking about, what are the permissions I had to give myself? And one was to think differently than everybody else and be okay with that. Um, and that one can be really hard because it's so ingrained in us that we don't even notice. I'm guessing you didn't even notice that you weren't doing what you wanted. You were just kind of on this path and you were doing the next right thing. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, spot on. And, I really resonate with what you're sharing as well. And I'm sure that many of the listeners do, because, like, we don't know what we don't know. From the
Mm-hmm.
moment that we are born and as we grow up, we only absorb what we are told and what we observe. So when we are told that these are the options, like doctor, lawyer, or failure, then that is all we know, right? So then we are led into this false sense of freedom, that, oh, we have choice, we can choose doctor, we can choose lawyer, we get to choose, like, we have that ability to write our story. But we don't actually see the greater picture, that we are still choosing options within lines. There are still these invisible lines, these invisible boundaries, you could say, that we don't recognize, and we're operating within those boundaries. And that's what I recognized when I once I had gone through this quarter life crisis, and I looked at my entire career pathway. Like, I thought that I had choice, and like I could choose all these different options, but really there was this implicit expectation that these were the acceptable options and these were the non-acceptable options. And it was implicit,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not like my parents ever said, you can't do this, you can do that. It was just through passing comments. They might be like, oh, yeah, like, Auntie Maisie, she does this job. And yeah, she doesn't really work very hard because that job is easy, or whatever it is. And it's just like passing comments that then become ingrained in our paradigm of how we perceive different career options. And I know that we're talking about career a lot right now, but this can be for anything. This can be for relationships, this can be for just lifestyle, it can be for any decision that we make in our life. So yeah, like doctor, lawyer, accountant, like anything in the health field. So I chose physiotherapy, and I felt like that was the best option based on what the expectations were. But in hindsight, I look back and I'm like, there were so many other pathways that I firstly didn't even know existed as an 18-year-old. And even, even as we go through our 20s, even as we go through our 30s, there is still going to be more that we're not aware of. And then also based on the relative safety of what everyone else around us is saying and doing, and what's considered normal and what's considered, you know, a secure pathway. Like, we want to blend in. It's literally a survival instinct that we want to blend in. We don't want to be completely outcasted. So we're going to choose like what we feel is normal and within an acceptable range of our environment. So from the moment we are born, we have been absorbing information from our environment. Now, our parents might say that this is acceptable and this isn't acceptable. Oh, don't cry, like, be a good girl, be a strong girl. Auntie Maisie has this job. Oh, she doesn't work very hard because this job is really easy. And then we just start to subconsciously store information into categories of what's acceptable and what isn't. So we know what we are told by our environment, and we may feel like we have like dominion and choice, but it's still often within invisible lines and invisible boundaries. Because like, okay, I can choose between doctor, I can choose between lawyer, accountant, or something in the health field. That was it for me. So I'm like, cool, I can choose, but really it's still within a bubble of options based on the environment and what that has told me is acceptable. But what I've realized in hindsight when I look back is I would have loved to been able to see beyond these invisible lines. I know it's challenging because we're within those lines. So sometimes it's hard to see that we're even within those lines in the first place. But that's why it's so great to take space and to really question our reality. Our perception is reality in the eye of the beholder. So really question our perception, really question our reality. Take it not as fact, not as the only option, not as a given, but as one pathway out of many. One pathway out of many. So I look back and I had chosen physiotherapy because that was the best option. I see that there could have been so many other pathways I could have chosen that I didn't even consider because I just wasn't aware of it at the time. And I know that we're talking about career right now, but this will go for any decision that we make in our life. This goes for relationships. This goes for lifestyle. This goes for any paradigm that we perceive is okay. This is a given. This is how things are done. But there are infinite options out there beyond what we currently feel like there is within our environment.
I love that so much because I think that that's so true. Like every time I do something, I always wonder, why do I do it this way? Where did that come from? Or why am I making this choice? Where did that come from? And that leads me to like old beliefs that we have. Like you said, there's some ingrained messages that we're getting from, Aunt Susie does this, and well, that's not really acceptable. You want to go to college so you can do something better than that, right? Or
Yeah.
whatever the talking in was. But one of my old beliefs that held me back for a really long time, even after I opened my own business, was hard work equals success. And that did a couple of things for me. One, I have a hard time having fun before I do my work, right? Like there's something in me that tells me I have to earn, right? I have to earn it. And if I'm going to earn it, it has to be hard. So, we all start our businesses thinking, I'm going to work for myself. That means like I could go for a hike during the day if I wanted, or I could go shopping if that's what I wanted, or I could go to the spa. You know how many times I've done that during like work hours? Like, very few. And it's only been in the last couple of years that I've given myself permission to take a break because I had this really have to work hard and that equals success. And in my brain, the way I interpreted that was you have to do all your work first. It should be really hard work so you feel really good about accomplishing it. And and I was like, I really brought it down to I'm only worthy if I'm working really hard, and I'm not going to be successful if the work isn't hard. So even in my own business, I would make myself do all the hard stuff first, not the stuff I really loved and why I was doing my business in the first place, but like
Mm,
all of the really hard stuff so that I could feel like I was earning my worth, because it's a very cultural thing in the United States that we have to earn our success. And even though like some of the things were easy for me, like the best parts of my business, like coaching and listening to women and asking good questions, that's all stuff that's really easy. So I would go and make things hard or find
mm-hmm,
hard things just in order to earn that. And I had to start looking at that and go, why am I not allowing myself to go for a hike on a Friday morning instead of going right to the computer? Why am I not? And that was the belief. So we have permission to change our beliefs. I no longer use that hard work equals success. It's just what if it's easy? Like I even ask myself the opposite, which I think is a good way of getting out of that, what you were saying, like that rut of just those limited options within those invisible lines, like in the path of what is okay. And what we mean is what is okay by other people, right? Like what is okay
mm-hmm,
that we've learned that other people are expecting us to show up in a certain way. And so there's that permission of allowing myself to change beliefs and really question some of those old beliefs. Because as we can see, like our younger generations, my stepdaughter, I'm so proud of her. Like she just manifests jobs. Like it's amazing exactly how she wants them. And I'm like, that's not going to work out. And surely it does. And so they have like this really fresh look at the way that we do things rather than like, me as a Gen Xer, it's like it was very much like this is how you do it. And once you have your
mm.
college degree and you get all these places, you are going to love it. So what is some other permissions that you think that we need to allow ourselves in order to even consider a career change? Because I know that I have a lot of women who they want to change careers, but they're in their 40s or their 50s and they're like, is it too late? I should probably just stay where I am because it's the path of least resistance, right? It's just to keep moving on the path that I am on. And what does that mean about letting go of all of this experience and this way that I've worked up to this? And so what do we need to give ourselves permission to do in order to really be open to that?
Mm. The first one that I'd like to share is one that I really struggled with, and that's then we're going to waste all of the years and the time and energy that we have put into creating this success that we currently have or getting to where we are now. So we are reluctant to change course because of what we have already put into this particular reality that we're now experiencing. And I thought this, for me, even as a 24-year-old, right? Even as a 24-year-old, I had that thought, oh my God, it's too late to change. This is who I am now. This is what I've got a name for. And yeah, like I had a name as a physiotherapist. I was getting called out to do talks and I was at conferences. But even then, I was already thinking that, let alone 10 years later, 20 years later. But this is what I say to that now, Back then, I had accumulated 4 years of university plus 4 years of work under my belt. So it was 8 years in total. And at the start, I was like, that's a waste. I don't want to waste 8 years of my life. But here's the thing, what is more of a waste? 8 years of the past that is now already done and technically doesn't exist anymore, or the next 30, 40, 50 years of your life. What's more of a waste? Wasting the 8 years that have already gone, or the next few decades of your life that are very real and is yet to come.
Mm,
And like when I saw it like that, I realized that what counts is what is yet to come. You know, that is the only
mm,
thing that we really have, the present moment and what we are yet to be able to create for ourselves. So that is what we really want to be putting our energy and our focus towards. Not the past, but what is yet to come.
mm.
Because that is what we're going to be experiencing for the rest of our life. Like we're going to be
Right.
waking up, and that is the life we're going to be living. So I'd much rather change course now, take the time to build up that business, pivot careers into my dream pathway, serving my mission, living my best life. And I don't mind how long it takes because that time's going to pass anyway.
Mm.
Time's
Yeah,
going to pass anyway.
I love this for so many reasons. Because one, we were saying how this applies to like regular life. Well, I get midlife women who, if it's not their career, it might also be like, well, my husband and I have had this really miserable relationship for 20 years. But we've been married and I don't want to just chip in. Like, and I'm not saying that once we get upset, we should like be like, oh, we're just going to get a divorce. That's not what I'm saying. But do you want to spend another 20 years being miserable? Like, is that better than actually shifting? And sometimes it's just that fear within us, of course, of shifting that thing. But what I also love about careers or even relationships is it wasn't for nothing, right? Like you being a
Yes.
physio wasn't for nothing. You went to college, which gave you skills beyond physio, right? Like you learned how to accomplish tasks on time and
Yeah. Build
deadlines and
rapport. Like,
yes, all of that stuff. So no matter what skills, like what we're moving into in the future, we're not starting from zero because we have
no.
all of this experience. Maybe some of the more practical parts of it doesn't seem like it fits, but I was in the corporate world before and marketing. Well, marketing skills help me now, right? Learning
Yes.
how to reach out to people and get guests for events, that still helps me now. So I think that we have to remember that we're not starting from zero. We're starting with
Mm-mm.
a different set of experience, is all it is, just to reassure you. So, and what I heard was permission to toss it if it's not working.
Yeah.
Like permission just to let it go, right? And whatever that role is. I remember we had a doctor on the summit and she came from an immigrant family as well. And so she worked so hard to become a doctor, first person in her family to go to college, to go get her doctorate. And when she came home and was telling them, like, oh, well, I don't want to be a doctor anymore. Like, there was a lot of resistance, let's say, to that. But I think
Mm.
what we need to let go of here is like this external validation that once, and I love that you called it a quarter life crisis because, midlife crisis is the thing that so many, if you look up midlife crisis is like the first word after it. And I like to see it as a midlife calling or a quarter life calling because there's
Mm-hmm.
like something within us that's saying, please listen to me. This isn't right. Something's not right here. And so giving ourselves permission to listen to that tiny voice inside of us that's like, hey, hey,
Yeah.
I might
Yeah.
be right. Maybe not everybody else is right, but I know what's going on for us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if that makes sense for you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like permission to let go because life is not linear. There
Mhm.
doesn't have to be a particular sequence of how we go through life and the milestones that we hit. In
Mhm.
fact, I see it as why not live multiple lifetimes in one life? Like, why
Mm.
do we have to just have one tap on of who we are and this is how we do things? And, that is our entire life. Why not live a chapter of our life? So, a decade of our life where we are in one career, we are in maybe one relationship that served us at the time. We were happy at the time. We got to experience all of the things at the time. And then maybe for the next decade of our life, we get to experience a completely different chapter. completely
Mm,
different lifetime. And that said, I went through this more recently. So I've spoken about my quarter life crisis, but I have been speaking openly about how this year I actually did separate from a decade long relationship.
mm,
And that was scary, that was tough. It's been one of the most challenging years of my life. But
mm,
there's a beautiful quote, I believe by Seneca, that is, we often suffer more in our imagination than in reality. We
mm,
often suffer more in our imagination than in reality, meaning the way that we build up the image of how our life will look when we let go and when we change, like how scary it will be, what other people would think about us, and how hard we're going to have to work because of, like, our mind tells us that we're starting from ground up, even though we are not, as we just spoke about before. It makes it seem so scary, so unrealistic. But what I've learned through the multiple major life changes that I've gone through is that we will always be okay. Like,
mm,
we will make it work because it's just one day at a time. And if we were okay before, we will be okay again.
mm,
And I think that has really helped me because, yeah, like when we're standing at the bottom of Mount Everest and we're looking at the summit, and that's where we want to go, it just seems so far away. It seems so intimidating. But every journey of 1,000 miles starts with just the first step.
mm,
And when we do take that first step, we're like, okay, cool. This is actually doable. I am doing okay. So taking that step one at a time means that we will make it. We are ready and we will make it. Because
mm,
I also do believe that we won't face any challenges in our life that we are not ready for. And like, that sounds a little bit woo-woo, but in terms of examples, think about a 3-year-old toddler. Think about a 3-year-old. What are their biggest challenges they're going to face? They're going to face challenges of, like, how to kick a ball, how to run, making friends at kindergarten. Like, that's going to be their biggest challenges, right? They're not going to have challenges related to finances. They're not going to have challenges related to mortgage because they are literally not at that stage of their life where they are ready and capable to navigate that challenge.
mm,
But if we are a woman, a powerful, intelligent woman in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and we are dealing with this new looming decision to change careers, to change relationships, to start a new life in a new country, even, right? Like, I lived abroad this year for the first time in my life. Then that means we are ready for that challenge. We are
mm,
mentally, emotionally, physically ready to navigate and rise up through this challenge. So, like, have that faith in ourselves because we can do it. We'll be okay.
yeah, like a permission to believe in ourselves, right? A permission to believe that if there is a voice calling, if we do have this midlife calling or whatever is happening, that it's valid, that we can actually listen to it. And I also heard this permission to almost like feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yes.
Understand that, yeah, this is scary. I might fail, might have to pick myself back up and try again. I might learn some lessons I'm not really keen on learning. But this permission just to allow ourselves to fail, allow ourselves to have the fear. And I love the way that you explain that. Yeah, because if we're imagining it, there is part of our brain that is like dreaming of it. Even if it feels scary, like for you in your relationship, like it had to feel scary to be like, am I tossing 10 years out the door, or is
Mm-hmm.
this, but what would be better if in 5 or 10 years that I had the exact right relationship that was better for me, rather than just staying because I'm supposed to, or I've put in the time or whatever. And I also loved how you said about living different different lifetimes in one lifetime, like permission to change our roles, right? Permission to change our own identity over like,
Yeah.
am I a corporate marketing person, or what if I could think of more than that? and really permission to dream. Because I think sometimes, I talk about this in one of my courses, I think sometimes we just dream to the shoreline, like you said, like here's the path that was laid out. And we want to dream in a way where, like, let me just get rid of the problems, but then we just get to want to thrive. We have to have this permission to dream bigger, to allow ourselves to dream bigger, to just imagine what else could be out there rather than just like, oh, well, here's the professions that were presented to me as okay. But,
Mm,
there's a million professions. Not only that, every day it seems like with technology and the way that the world changes, there's new professions starting every day. There was no such thing as an influencer 20 or 30 years ago. Like, that's a new thing that got, so like I couldn't have grown up and been like, oh, I'm going to be an influencer when I grow up. Still not my goal. But just the idea of like, of course, there's so many paths that we don't know. There's paths that haven't even been invented yet that maybe is waiting for you to be the one that invents it.
yeah, yes. And adding on to that, Christina, the US Department of Labor actually estimates that the average person will have 14 jobs by the time they are
Mm,
38 years old. Like that is the
mm,
reality of this fast-paced world that we live in now. As you say, the best job today may not even exist in 5 years' time, and jobs that don't exist today could be the next best opportunity in 5 years' time. We don't know that. That is the reality of our world. Yet there is that implicit narrative that we are going to be married to one profession and one identity for our life. So this is where we've got to give ourselves that permission to not just operate within the lines, but to abolish the lines completely.
mm,
Let's change the paradigm of what we can and can't do and do whatever we want to do. Like we have the pen to our own book. We get to write whatever book we want to write, how many ever chapters we want to write, how adventurous and contrasting each chapter gets to be. And it makes it fun, like it makes life fun when we kind of let go of the rigid grasp that we have on what we have to be and where our path needs to go. It
mm,
really gives us that sense of inner peace. And I know it's
mm.
easier said than done, but it all starts with listening to this conversation and starting to question ourselves, what do we really want? Like,
I love
when was the
that.
last time we got to ask ourselves that question, right? Like, what do we actually really want?
Right. And it's like, I always hear, like, well, which path do I take? Well, sometimes we got to bulldoze a new one, right? I mean, and so it's not just permission to take a path, but it's also permission to create one if the one that you want isn't there. And that's completely viable. And I think with what you said about having 14 jobs or whatever before we're 38, that is actually, to me, seems really beautiful because now you have these 14 slightly different skill sets, probably. And that makes you unique, right? It makes each of us unique, the different combination of skills that we have and desires that we have, and, ways that we want to be able to use those skills. It all makes us unique to have that different, like, combination. And so I think that, like I said, the permission is sometimes we just need to create a new path, and that's okay. But in order to do that, what I had to do was let go. I had to give myself permission to let go of external validation, of people pleasing, because let me tell you, when you decide to do something against what other people are doing, not only will they fear for you, but there's also sometimes people who are like jealous that you give yourself permission to really explore rather than just conform. Because that's really, I believe, like what Gen X was kind of taught was just like, here, you're going to conform. You're going to go to college, you're going to get a job. You're going to go to college, you're going to get a job. And I'm not saying that college is bad. I'm just saying that we didn't really get a chance to create our own path, as you said. We
Mm,
really somehow the messages that we got was like, okay, maybe there's 4 paths or even 10 paths, but like, which path do I choose? Rather than like, well, what is it that I actually want, and how we can listen to that inner voice that's really asking us to do something different. I mean, I think that is really our connection to spirit, or a connection, and not without going too woo woo, but like a connection to our own soul path, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And here's one as well that I really think needs a mention:
Mm.
permission to make a lot of money.
Ooh, ooh, I got
This
chills. Yes.
this is an honorable mention, because how
Yes.
many of us are told that, money is the root of all evil? All rich people are jerks. They're all selfish. They're
Mm,
manipulative. That's why they are rich. Money doesn't grow on
mm,
trees. Make sure you save money, and you don't spend and enjoy the money that you make. And
mm,
especially as women, right? Times are changing. So we live in this beautiful, opportunistic, and abundant world for women today. But generationally, the narrative that women aren't the ones that are in power or in ownership of the money as well. But like I said, in today's world, women have more opportunities, more power, more freedom, more voice than ever before. So giving ourselves permission to hold a lot of money, because if we're not holding that money, then someone else is. And if someone else is holding that money, they might just be spending it on private jets or yachts or drugs or something. But if we hold that money, then we get to distribute that money in a way that is meaningful to us. So
mm,
maybe we get to live our best life and enjoy the luxuries that we want to enjoy, but we then also get to distribute that money towards causes, towards progress, towards changing this world that we believe is righteous or is true to our values. And that's
mm,
how I've had to switch my mindset around, because for a long time in my business at the start, I was literally repelling money. I didn't want too much money. I'd feel guilty. Oh my gosh, I don't want to take too much money. I don't want to charge too much.
mm,
I'm not good with money, so I'm not going to have a lot of it, because then I'll just squander it. But then I've had to
mm,
change it around, that it's actually aligned to my purpose and to my values, to direct money my way so that it can be utilized for positive change, for positive impact in this world.
Oh, I completely forgot about that one. That definitely needs a mention, because I also have been like, well, what's the minimal that I need to charge? Because I want to be able to help more people. And I had a coach once that was like, won't you be able to help more people if you actually charge more? Because you'd have more resource to be able to go out there and help people. You could, like you said, give to the causes that are important to you. If you say that these causes are important, don't you want to raise money for them? Don't you want to be able to give back and make sure that these things survive? And isn't that also part of your mission? So,
Mm-hmm.
really understanding that, it's not about the greedy green. It's about us resourcing ourselves. And that is like, money is a resource, but it's no different than like energy or time, in that, it's just one more way that we use that resource, and we say, yes, actually make me more money so that I can really carry out my mission, whatever that is, whether that's helping women or saving animals or saving the earth in ways, to preserve.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there's so many, and that would create this shift to a more feminine way of looking at resource, right? Instead of men just raising it, or people who just raise it and just, blow it all just to have a good time, which, if that's you, do it. But for me,
Yeah.
what would mean more would be able to really impact the mission that I have of supporting women and loving them and getting them to empower themselves. So, and money is just one more way that they can resource themselves. So lovely. Is there
Mm,
one more permission that you want to talk about before we go?
hmm. The
I'm
last
sure you
one, I
have a whole
think,
list of them. So
yeah,
yeah, pick one.
so many, so many. I think that the last one is permission to be, and this is related to the money conversation, the
Mm,
permission to be super successful and world class in what we do.
mm,
And the reason why I want to finish off with this is because many of us desire that, or maybe not all of us, but we may want to, yeah, be world class. We may want to be extremely successful in what it is that we do. But due to our own sense of self and our identity that we currently hold, we don't see ourselves as being worthy of that or being capable of that. So, 80 up to 80% of people experience imposter syndrome. 8 out of 10 people experience imposter syndrome, thinking that we're not good enough. We are fraud. Our current success is a fluke.
mm,
But the thing is, we are always capable of more, because if we like see our potential as where it is right now, then we'll be a 20-year-old for the rest of our life. Like, we'll never be learning more skills, more experiences, gaining more knowledge. We'll just be like a 20-year-old in a 50-year-old's body. But that's not true. We are constantly growing and evolving. So
mm,
remembering that, not just in hindsight, but like going forward as well, that just because where we are now with our certain experiences, maybe with some setbacks up to date, maybe some failures up to date, maybe some evidence up to date, maybe there's been certain feedback that clients or colleagues or previous bosses have told us, that does not define us. It does not define who we can yet to be.
mm,
So giving ourselves permission to be super successful, and that we are worthy of that,
yeah,
because
and to
a
claim it,
final,
right?
right, and that's why actually I ran a retreat over the weekend, and one of the exercises that is often quoted as the best exercise at the retreat is getting the women to write down a list of all of the things that they are most proud of themselves.
Mm,
And it doesn't end
ooh,
there. They
mm,
then stand in front of a group and share that list, owning themselves and owning their space. And it's so scary because everyone at the side is like, oh my God, are we really going to do this? And then by the end, they're just like, yeah, and I did this and I did that. And I'm so proud of myself. And everyone's like, yeah, you go, girl. Like, you do that. And
uh,
like being able to own it, that we are so capable, and simply the fact that we are here, seeing it, dreaming it, wanting it, we are ready and, yeah, worthy to achieve that.
mm.
So giving
I love
ourselves
that. Yeah.
permission to evolve beyond what we can currently see.
And really owning it. And I love that because there was a study done on men and women when they go to interview. And like, it's like some astronomical number, like 70 to 80% of men will overtalk their accomplishments, making them seem bigger than they really are. And women do the exact opposite. They tend to play down their accomplishments, say, well, it was part of the team helped me, or yeah, I just did that. Like it's nonchalantly, right? They don't really claim as much of their significance or magnificence than that men
Yeah.
do. And it's just kind of grown in there. And I mean, I think back to my childhood, especially in my age generation, and it was always like, don't show off, don't boast, don't, look like the center of attention. And now I'm
Mm-hmm.
like constantly asking my clients, what are you celebrating? And they'll go, well, I'm grateful that. I'm like, no, what are you celebrating about yourself? Not what are you grateful for in your life? That's great. I'm not trying to be ungrateful, but it's more
Yeah.
about it's so much harder for us to go, I made this choice and I'm really proud of myself. I move
Yes.
forward on this and I'm really proud of myself for doing that. Like pride seems to be something that we have to give ourselves permission, to be
Yes.
prideful, really celebrate ourselves. But when we do that, we're also giving permission to other women to celebrate themselves and celebrate each other rather than like getting in this natural competition that we can tend to get into. A really
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. What a beautiful conversation today. Hopefully, it's been helping some of our audience really open up to the idea that there's many ways of thinking about something. And if you need permission, reach out to me or Trang, and we would be happy to pretend to give you permission because we can't possibly do that. You have to give it to you. But if you need a little encouragement, we would be happy to offer some of that. I know that you have a free gift for us. So you want to share that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am so big on us really stepping into our highest power and
Mm.
fulfilling our purpose and potential. So that can be through giving ourselves permission, that can be through like pivoting and building our dream business. And then part of that as well is making sure that we, our fullest life.
Mm.
So, something that I like to share is the weekly creation method guide. It's a 3 step process for you to be as productive as possible in your weeks so that you have the first ability to achieve all the things that you want. And then also, number two is see yourself in a different light. Because when we finish our weeks on a high, having done all the things that we want to do, we have followed through with our own commitments and promises, then we now value ourselves more. We actually, I believe, respect ourselves more. So it's all part of the bigger picture. But I have a
Mm.
weekly reflection and creation process. Creation. So we're not just managing our weeks as they come up, but we are creating our weeks and
Mm.
therefore our life. I have a process that has worked so well for me over the years. It's worked really well for my clients, and I have it for free. So I'll give that link to you, Christina, and then yeah,
It'll be in the
anyone is
show
welcome to
notes.
utilize
Go
it.
click on it. It's there. Yeah, it'll be below, and all of Trang's contact information will also be there. So if she said something that made you think and you have a question or you want to reach out for that support in, allowing yourself permission to change what you're thinking and change the way that you're thinking, or change your career, Trang is the person for you. Thank you so much for
Mm.
being here today. I really appreciate you. This has been a lovely conversation.
Thank you, Christina. Once again, it is such an honor to be on the show to share this conversation with you and hopefully touch on the lives of the women out there.
Yeah, and thank you, shifters, for tuning in. I hope that you go out and find new ways to give yourself permission to really expand and explore. Have a good week. Are you tuned in and you're like, I wish I had a group of women that I could have these conversations with so I could hear their real lives, how they're experiencing these challenges, how they're getting to the celebrations, how they're building a journey that is more joyful and confident? Well, I got you. I have created a community called the Modern Midlife Mentorship, where we have a modern perspective over what aging and what we look like aging looks like today. It doesn't have to be sitting in a rocking chair. In fact, there are so many women out there doing so many amazing things, as you can hear with my guests on the podcast. But in this modern midlife mentorship, we're going to bring a community together to rethink about what midlife can be like, really dive deep into the topics that are impacting us, like our health, our emotions, our mental health, our relationships, and that big piece of what do I want next for myself. So, if you are interested in being in a community, making more connections with women in midlife, and getting all the tools you need to really move through the challenges and get to those celebrations, then I want you to click the button below for the Modern Midlife Mentorship. Learn more, reach out if you have any questions, and I would love to see you there. Thanks for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed the episode and that you were able to get something out of it. If that's true, then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, every week this season, I am going to be releasing more. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment. It all really helps us get seen by more women so that we can really revolutionize how we see aging and how we see ourselves while we're aging so that we can age more joyfully and confidently. I hope you're gentle with your humanness, especially in midlife. Bye.